So I just want to clarify. So this is not another episode about warbands, right?
No, Marty, I assure you I will not be talking about warbands on this episode of Talking WoW.
And you're 100% sure? Because it feels like it could be a little bit about warbands.
Look, Marty, I promise you, I swear, like it's not about warbands, okay? I okay, maybe a bit.
Welcome back to Talking WoW, where today we are going to talk about solo playing in World of Warcraft. And my name is Marty, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with my good friend Thom over there. How you doing?
Hey, Marty, it's good to be back here talking about World of Warcraft with you.
Yeah, and solo playing in World of Warcraft has been amazing in this expansion. Isn't that right? How do you feel about it? Because I think you're a little bit more solo player than I am, probably.
I'm just a little bit, I'm the lone wolf of Talking WoW. I think, venturing out there into the world, not interacting with any other people, which, not completely true. I actually recently joined some guilds for the first time in a long time. But, up until that point, I would say that, in the entirety of World of Warcraft, we're 20 years now, I would say, the War within has really kicked off this almost acceptance of solo play. I mean, people have played solo in World of Warcraft for forever, right? I mean, me and you have played solo at different points, and but right now it almost seems like, hey, this is actually an accepted way to play. Not that it wasn't an accepted way to play, but even Blizzard, put out a blog post to say, look at everything you can do solo now, because in Dragonflight we got follower dungeons, which was at the time, something we were quite excited about. Mm-hmm. But really only in the War Within that we saw actually what potential that has. And I don't know if you venture into follower dungeons that often, but for me it was great because the first time I go into a dungeon, I actually like to see the dungeon and I like to take my time to just take in that aesthetic and not join a group and just rush through it very, very quickly. I think it's nice to just get that sense of appreciation.
Yeah, I think me personally, I think it did when I was prompted to by quests and stuff like that in leveling. I did do it just to check it out, but since then I haven't really touched it too much. But I do know people who just go in and do weekly quests or things like that just to get it over and done with quickly, and other and for other reasons as well. So it definitely feels like it's a good system that's here to stay. And I mean, you cannot go completely wrong with something that was already in SWTOR, right?
Oh, there it is. I mean, we see it in other MMOs as well, not just Star Wars: The Old Republic. But no, I think it's a great feature. We've talked about it on here many times, and I appreciate that it's there, especially when you do get those quests that sort of drop you off outside a dungeon. Actually just feels nice to just say, okay, well, I don't have to go and get a group of people to do this. I can just continue that at my own pace. And hey, sometimes you're in a dungeon and your doorbell rings or your phone rings, Marty, and sometimes you have to step away from the computer. And, if you're with other people, sometimes they don't really like that. The NPCs, they don't complain. And for me, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's definitely something that I'm enjoying, as I said, through leveling, because I think the first week where I'm just leveling through and getting to know all the new things, I just want to do that on my own pace and in my own time, and just being focused myself and do that. So it makes so much sense for me at that point. So yeah, really been a good addition, I think.
And following up from that, for the first time in War Within, we've got the story mode in Raid, which was interesting because you get to essentially skip to the last boss of the raid, to kill the end boss and to get the cinematic, to get some context of what's happening in the raid. I probably will say that this maybe needs a bit more work, because as someone that hadn't done any of the raiding and then just jumped straight into the end boss and killed the end boss, from what I heard was there was actually still quite a lot of nice lore and interactions that happen throughout the raid that probably would be beneficial to, even a solo player experiencing that for the first time.
I agree. I think it would have been cool if, and they probably will expand on this in the future. It seems like it's a little bit of an experiment that they're doing. I do like the idea, but I also do agree that it would be fun that, just to mention one boss, like, and I'm so horrible with names, but the one boss that is also in Dawnbreaker that flies away, she's actually a boss in the raid as well. So, it would have been fun to just get, the conclusion to that as well, and stuff like that. But overall, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's cool, and I think it's probably, a little bit of a continuation from what they tried to do in Dragonflight, where you got quests after you finished the raid, and so the conclusion of the raid was not necessarily the conclusion of the story, and you could still need to go in and do a few things. So I think that when they figure out how to use these things properly, then it could be very cool for the solo player.
Yeah, it definitely helps transition from just doing the story quests out in the world and then bringing you in to see what happens in the raid, because usually, if you're not a raider, or you avoid looking for raid, which I don't blame you, then you do miss that, usually that conclusive element, and a lot of the times I reckon people like who don't raid probably just go and look up the cinematic and get it a little bit out of context, which I think it's nice to get it in the context of the boss kill. Just getting the surroundings as well, because I think sometimes just watching a cinematic, you do lose that clarity of where and when it's happening. So I think, it's definitely still something I'd like to see them working on a bit more, but it's going in the right direction. And I think something else that's going in the right direction, Marty, is, and here we go, it's the fact that now that we have warbands in World of Warcraft, we have all these characters that we can play anytime we want. And something great about this, Marty, because probably in the past, and I know you have many, many alts, many more than I can count, and probably something that you would find difficult is gearing up all those characters that you maybe want to play as a, maybe just a solo player, or, just gearing them up to go do other content beyond that. But now just being out in the world, just doing stuff like world quests, you not only get gear to start you up, but also finally solo players get to enjoy the weekly reset of going to the vault, Marty. We finally feel part of the thing that happened, the Christmas, the birthday, the anniversary that happens every week when people go to the vault and get that big disappointment. Finally, solo players are part of that.
And you spoke a little bit about gearing as well, and I just want to add on top of that it's so cool because there's so many ways that you can gear up now. I know that obviously this is a bit of a special time where we have the 20-year anniversary, but which gives good amount of gear, but also just that you have delves. You can go in solo and do delves, which adds to the before mentioned vault. But the further you get into the expansion as well, you start to collect undercoin from these delves, and with that coin you can actually buy like specific pieces for your alts, because you can you can just transfer the currencies. You can go buy specific pieces. You can also, if you have enough coin, buy almost like a full set of gear. You just go buy one box and it has everything in it except rings, weapons, and trinkets. And just to get you into that end game a little bit quicker. And it's just so great that there's so many different options for you to get into the game and into all the stuff that is fun to do.
Yeah, and like if you've been, leveling up your renowned on one character, and then you've unlocked like an item, some gear. Usually by the time you've unlocked that on one character, it was like, oh, this is useless. I can't wear this now. But, with warbands, it's like, oh, but this other character that I'm leveling up now, they're going to be able to benefit from it. So I think, it's a system in Dragonflight that was a bit flawed because there was no warband system, that it was like, what do I need this item level for? Like, it took me all this time to unlock it, and now I can't use it because it's useless.
It's one of those things that's always puzzled me all the way back to probably vanilla, or at least the first expansions when they started coming out, that, you unlock this rep, and when you're finally done with the rep grind and you have that item unlocked, if you've just played the game a little bit, like I've done with dungeons and raiding, then you usually out-level that item, and it's just great that now that you can just go back in fresh alt, just buy the item straight off if you've done your rep. And again, to add to that, if you've done your renowns, then you also get a lot of crests and valor stones and crafting tokens. So you can actually, if you have the goal for it, you can go craft 5 items in total. And so, yep. Really good. Really, really enjoying it so far as just one who enjoys playing alts.
Yeah, and there is that real reliance, I suppose, now that even if you're a solo player, and maybe you're a solo player who wants to graduate into, doing raiding, mythics, like I think this is just a great foundation for this, because like you mentioned, we have delves, which you can go in solo. You have all the time you need to do a delve and experiment with delves and try and figure that puzzle out by yourself and also get rewarded for it. And something else that I've noticed, just to potentially assist with this, and maybe it's a terrible example, I don't know, but you have the like weekly event, which is like Awakening the Machine, which I think there's definitely room for improvement with something like Awakening the Machine. However, if you're a player that goes into that, actually it does start teaching you like how to do certain mechanics. And I quite like the fact that there's some events like this in game now, which I think they could expand on in the future as well. And just, it's just a place to sort of teach the basics. But, it's like, oh, I'm in Awakening the Machine and there's a caster mob, and it's like, go interrupt that caster mob. And then, hey, this machine fires out this beam that you just got to stand in. And okay, it's very basic stuff if you've played a lot of the game, but think about it if you're more of a new player or inexperienced player. Suddenly it's like, okay, well, it's teaching you some basic mechanics, interrupting, stand here, kill these mobs first, and I think we haven't really had stuff like that in the game. I know, when was it, Mists of Pandaria, we had like proving grounds or something like that, but again, I think just having more tools in the game, and Delves is a great example as well, because there's a lot of mechanics in there where it's like, hey, don't step in that green shit. Don't do that. Don't pull too many mobs. Kill that mob first. And I think just having this baseline of solo education, which some people are gonna learn from that, and other people learn through other means. But I think just generally, this is the foundation that's being set, and I think that can also encourage people then, when they get confident with that content, to maybe take the step up if they want to, which I don't think we've just had that before.
One thing, though, that I feel like could be something Blizzard could look into for the future as well is that you spoke about delves, and there's actually abilities that the mobs do in delves that actually can help you if you know how to utilize them correctly. Like exploding things usually also do damage to the enemy themselves. So if you can place those spores correctly, then you can actually give those mobs, a damage dot that deal damage to them. And I think those are cool mechanics. It's cool small things you can figure out over time and things like that. But they kind of miss in other types of content. I think it could be fun to see this, make its way into something like Mythic Plus or Dungeons or even Raids, perhaps, where sometimes you can, use the environment like that to your advantage.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, like them using delves as a place to have, the basic mechanics that maybe some of these mobs are doing, and then, in the Mythic versions, there's a bit more of like an accelerated version or, harder hitting version, or just maybe a bit more of a complex version of those mechanics. But
high risk, high reward.
Yeah, just lots of exploding mushrooms or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I think, overall so far, the War Within, warbands are there, and just with the systems that we have in place already with the War Within, it's looking very exciting for, you know, being a solo player in World of Warcraft. And being a solo player comes in many forms. That doesn't just mean you always play solo, but it's nice just having that space when, you know, because sometimes you just want to log on, don't you? You don't want to deal with people, and you just want to go out into the world and you want to get some stuff done. And I think it's never felt better for doing that. And I sort of welcome what's going to come beyond the War Within and how they're going to expand on that, because I think, you know, so many different types of players, and really it does feel like right now there is just something for everyone. It feels like everyone's getting, you know, their favorite food at the buffet right now, Marty. Everyone's, you know, coming up with their trays and they're loading up and they're having a really good time.
Egg and bacon. But anyway, that's what we thought about being a solo player in World of Warcraft. Obviously, there's many other ways to play solo content that differs from how we do it. So what do you think? Is there anything particularly good in this expansion, or something, even maybe something you might miss from other expansions? Let us know. You can do that in the comments down below if you're on YouTube, or on Blue Sky, where we also I was about to say tweeting, but we're posting over there.
Don't say that.
So yeah, I've been Marty.
I've been Thom.
And we've been talking WoW.
Thanks for tuning in, champion. Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice, or leave us a comment. You can find Talking WoW on
Blue Sky
or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon.